Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And this week I have Caryn Ruby. And I mean, maybe I wanted your job in my 20s. I definitely wanted your job in my 20s. And one of your jobs, people are always like, oh my God, you should totally do that job. And I'm like, that is not how I roll. So, Caryn, what's your job title?
Oh, I know the job you're referring to. That's the job of comedian. I bet.
That
I
is
bet everyone's
correct.
like, you're so funny. You should be a comedian. People say that to people all the time, and it's not a good lifestyle. Also, I have
No,
many other jobs, but we'll get there. Yeah.
but like, I just feel like there's such a big difference between I am conversationally funny and I could stand up in front of people who I do not know and have like no context for my wit and be funny on demand. That is a much harder thing to do. Like being conversationally witty is just mostly about not giving a shit. Like if you start there, usually you're fine. And if you're willing to like pepper in F-bombs here and there, especially in a business context, people think that you're like a real rebel. So I
Seems
don't.
like you could do stand up based on what you're saying.
I
It's you know what it is. It's a matter of working on it and practicing the jokes. And that's the thing that the people who go, oh, you should be a comedian don't understand, right? Is like, what I actually am not doing stand up right now, and I haven't done it since the pandemic, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it. I probably will again, but like it's whatever. But in the before times, I mean, I'd go to three, maybe four clubs a night, and by club sometimes I just mean basement of a bar, to be honest. But you have to work it, and you have to work it, and you have to work it, and so it's like repeating, and then you say a joke, and then somebody says something weird, and you're like, funny comeback, and you're like, ooh, that goes there, and now I say that every time. Or some other comedian, you get off stage, they go, here's a good thing, you should say that at the end, or maybe I don't think you should say this. And it's like working it out, and that's the work that people don't know or understand when they say, you're funny, you should be a comedian. And then everybody thinks that they can just get up on stage and be funny, and maybe they can the first five times or not. I mean, I don't know.
see, I think it's like the Miss Maisel effect, right? Like we all were dazzled, stupefied, and amazed by Miss Maisel, right? Because it's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
But she just got pissed
Mm-hmm.
and got up on a stage
Mm-hmm.
and slayed.
Yeah.
And I get that. But that's not real. Like that's heavily scripted. There was a whole team of writers at Amazon that made that happen. Like if your expectation is like, well, shit, I get pissed and I'm funny when I'm pissed. I too should be a stand-up comedian. That is not how any of this works.
but
Like,
but in a way it is, but like, start out at open mic nights. Go to open mic nights every night of the week. Go to three open mic nights every night of the week. Sit through the drudgery of all the dudes making their dick jokes and the rape jokes, and you go, God, what? Get out, because that's that's the life of a comedian.
so here is a really funny. So I spent 10 and a half years in England. My husband is super British. And he and his bestie had like a boys' weekend in the before times in DC. And they love comedy. And we used to go all the time to comedy clubs in the UK. And so they're like, oh shit, there's this comedy club around the corner. We should go. And then they're like, double oh shit, Chris Rock's brother is performing. I mean, like, Chris
Totally
Rock is
rock.
hilarious. Even if he's terrible, that's kind of funny in and of itself, right? Like, there's no lose with this. And
Mm-hmm.
they go to this comedy club, and this is your joke about the dude bras made me think of this. Two like Whitey McWhiterton English dudes walk into this comedy club, and they're like, he was like, everybody was staring at us. It was very uncomfortable. And I was like, oh. Did you do something weird? And he was like, well, finally, somebody came over and they're like, hey, friend, are you lost? And they were like, I don't think so. We're here for the whatever the guy's name is show. Like, no,
Uh,
no, that's here. Everybody is staring at you, not to be rude, but this is a black comedy bar.
mm,
You are not black. And they were like, we didn't know that was a thing. This guy seemed funny when we watched him on YouTube. Are we good? And they were like, awesome. And like they were super welcoming after that, but like it was very weird for them to have like these two super white dudes walk in. And I, in my extreme naivete, I too did not realize that like there were flavors of comedy bar, if that makes sense. And
mm,
flavors of comedy, it makes
mm.
sense to me that that kind of thing would happen. But as a layperson looking to go out and enjoy live comedy, how do I select a comedy venue that is not going to have rape jokes and dude bras?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did a lot of comedy when I was in Chicago, and Chicago is a very segregated city. And so if I went to a place on the north side, it was 98 to 99% white. And if I went to a club on the south side, it was black. And that's just how Chicago is, you know?
That is, yeah, that is just like the geography of Chicago.
Mhm.
Like the demographic split is
Yeah.
palpable.
Right. And so, I mean, the first couple of times I did comedy in the black clubs, right? I was like nervous, right? Of course. Like, oh my God, are they gonna like me? I don't know. But you just if you're funny, you're funny and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But you have to be funny. Like you can't not be funny. Like it's the most honest clubs. You know what I mean? Like there's if you're not funny, they're just not gonna have it,
I mean, I feel like that's got to be rule, like step one of comedy, right? Be funny.
It
Step
is, but
two,
like, I mean,
buffer.
I've look, not every night when you do comedy, you kill. Not every night. Sometimes it's not a good night. And I could always tell. I mean, you know, look, when because you can hear the laughs or you don't hear and the worst thing for me was when I get off the stage and like somebody would say, "You're so brave that you do comedy." And I was like, you think this is a compliment? This is not a compliment.
I appreciate what you're trying to do, but please don't do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it
Wow.
didn't happen a lot, to be fair. Like I'm funny, but like, everybody has an off night, or like you're trying new jokes and they just don't work, or like, I don't know, you smoke too much weed, or yeah, I don't know. It's like
Everybody has bad days, right? Like I have, like, I think that you probably have this as well. I think anybody who is kind of like a naturally irreverent or kind of a witty person, right? You go into any social situation, business meeting, friends encounter, what have you. The expectation is that you're going to show up and be the funny one. And there are days that I do not feel funny.
Mm,
There are days when those little bastard children have been up since 5 o'clock in the goddamn morning, and the dogs are going nuts, and there's five things going on, and I have a migraine, and no, I do not want to sit here and be pithy at you
mm.
because that is your expectation. And I can only imagine, like, if that was my career to be funny, like, you got to suck it up, Buttercup. What do
Yeah, I
you
mean,
do to make
the
that happen?
nice thing for me when I did it is I, had a set that I had written and worked out. So, and yeah, I mean, it's also a lot of it is in the delivery. So if you're having a bad night and you don't deliver the joke with the right timing or the right intonation, or you get distracted because the waitress drops the drinks right on your punchline, any number of things can happen. But at least having the jokes, and then once you've been doing it for a long, long time, then you have like a Rolodex, if you will, in your head. So it's
Sure.
like, oh, this happened. Now I can just cut to that. And I know this always works. And I can go to that. And then, oh, they said something like stupid in the audience, but like, oh, yeah, well, I have a comeback for that. And that relates to this joke here. And then I pull it back over. So that's the thing is like, you're saying things, but like, this is going on. Like, what comes next? What comes next? What do I do? Yeah, detour. It's crazy.
I think that needs to be like a new criteria for me, because I have a couple of my clients in recruiting that I say that they need Gilmore Girls people, that they have that witty patter, that like fast talking, ask and answer kind of vibe. And like they just culturally would not tolerate a reflector. To be like, and then come back tomorrow with a great idea. As a culture, they would be like, ugh, fucking Susie. Right. So like they just need that banter. And I feel like maybe I should be looking for more comedians for them. Perhaps this is where I
I
have missed a
mean,
trick, Karen.
yeah.
Feeling educated now and inspired already.
Glad. Oh, that's really why I'm here.
We talked about comedy, but that is but one of your many hats.
True.
So, tell me about scripts and what you know about those.
Script supervising,
Yes.
you mean?
What does that mean?
So I'm a script supervisor. That's another day job that I have. It's where I work on set and I basically manage the continuity of filmmaking. As you may know, as your audience may or may not know, films are filmed, they're made out of order. So, you know, just because like you're watching a film and they walk in the house and then they go to the kitchen and then they do this, we don't film them walking in the house and then go to the kitchen and then follow them around, because that doesn't make sense financially, right?
Right.
There's like a scene,
All the outside shots happen, and then all the inside shots happen.
right. So you're constantly, oh, that's a dog barking in my building.
There you go.
Sorry. So we have this whole intricate system of making sure to keep track of everything, what's been shot, what's, you know, coming up, what is the motivation of the character in this scene, what happened in this scene that we shot 3 weeks ago that plays right after the scene that we're about to shoot. Are they wearing the same clothes? Does their makeup look the same? Does their hair look the same? Did we forget to put the makeup bruise on because they had a fight that we haven't shot yet? Or, you know, like a table scene, and you're shooting a table scene all day. Well, the actor's going to probably take a drink from their drink a couple of times, but when we reset it and we shoot their coverage on them, or then we shoot on this person and then we do the wide, or all of that, you have to make sure that things match, you know, because we've all seen it, right? Like you're watching a film and it's a wide shot and their plate is full, and then you go on a close-up and everything's empty, and then it goes back to something, it's like things are jumping around. So we try and protect from that, but also in the end it's not really our responsibility, because we make all the notes on set. It's a big job. It's like hard to like explain it all, but like we also take all the notes of what was shot and what kind of camera and the lenses, and you know how many takes we did and which ones were better, which one had a good sound or a bad sound with the airplane flying over, all these things, all these notes, you know, and then the editor takes the notes. But if take one was the best performance of the actor, even though I specifically said, do not use this take, we forgot to put the actor's hat on, they don't care. That's the best performance. That goes in the show. And then somebody's watching it online and they go, script supervisor, stupid. They didn't have the hat on. And it's like, I'm, you know.
I am not stupid. I am not listened to. They're different. I was going to ask you that because there's like this whole cult of people in the nerding community who like.
Are you one?
I'm not one of these particular flavors of asshole, but I am in the nerd community for sure.
Okay.
And that, but they like that's how they get their rocks off, right? Is they watch films and they look for moments that something didn't go exactly right. You must like they must be the bane of your professional existence.
Well, it's funny. I don't personally care about it, but one of the scripts, I have a new podcast that just launched today whenever we're taping it, so whenever you're watching this it will already exist. It's called Script Supervisors, Unsung Heroes of Film and TV. Check that out. And one of the script supervisors that I interviewed for the podcast, Robert Goodwin, he used to be that guy before he was a script supervisor. He was that guy.
And so now does he like go onto those forums and like those discords and be like, "Stop it! You know not what you say." No.
No, but he tells some great stories in the podcast about how, because I talk about, how with continuity, like something happens and we don't shut the production down, we just keep going and things aren't going to match, and that's just what it is. And like everyone always says, well, if they're going to focus on this one thing that's a continuity error, they're not paying attention to, like, we're not doing a good job if they're really focused on this silly thing that has nothing to do with the story. And he always would say, yeah, but I was one of those guys, and you don't want to give them an excuse to focus on that thing, because that takes away from what we're trying to do here. So, I mean, it's like we can only do so much as a script supervisor. Like, we can say, hey, here's the thing I noticed. We should probably address it. And 9 times out of 10, it's like either they can and they do, or they just say, well, we don't have the time to do that. It's going to take too much time. We're on the clock. We have only so many hours, whatever. So we're just going to move on. And we go, I told them. They said to do it anyway. So that's the secret behind the scenes.
I love that though, that like, I can't even, so how big is your stuff? Because for a film, it can't just be you. Like for a major motion picture or a TV show or any of those things, like it cannot be one human being making all of those notes and doing all of those things and running all of the copy to everybody, and like the proliferation of duties that must come with that. You must have a staff, surely.
So this is why we started our new podcast, Script Supervisors, Unsung Heroes of MMT, because we want to change that. I mean, on really big films, there are sometimes other units because they're shooting simultaneously. There's like second unit, and they're doing like B-roll, or they're doing some of the other scenes that happen, like some VFX stuff or whatever. So that might be an occasion to have a second script supervisor. I've learned through this podcast that in England, your old stomping grounds, they have assistant script supervisors on a lot of projects. We don't have that here. So part of the reason we're doing this podcast is to increase visibility, awareness, and say, hey, this is insane what you want us to do. Like, one camera, okay. Then they throw 2 cameras, like anything over 2 cameras. I worked on a short film that had 6 cameras. And it's like all you can do is just write the notes as fast as you can.
I just like getting because you have to be there, I would think, live while they're shooting, to be making notes there. And then like on top of that, you would have to go home at night or after shooting and then round out all of the millions of things you didn't get to say and put in the like,
yeah, it's like
your motivation. Oh my God.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
How do you wind up doing that? Because that job, I think, would totally make me like curl up in a ball and cry. How do you go from being normal human to doing this role? Like,
I mean,
well, because when people think about anything regarding like film and television is always aspirational, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we all feel like that's for something beyond this normal mortal realm. So like, how do you go from whatever was your childhood into working in these? Because you've worked on huge projects with like huge people, right? I mean, they won some Oscars. Does anybody really care?
I worked with people who have won Oscars. That is true.
Yes.
The people on my podcast have, like, I have, the script supervisor for Black Panther, the script supervisor for Harriet, the script supervisor for Mr. Robot, I mean, on and on and on and on, like all the top tier people, Pen 15, all the things, right? So they're ahead of me in the game. But I'm getting there. But how did I do it? Well, so I grew up in Chicago, and like I always knew that I wanted to work.
Pause. You said you grew up in Chicago.
I did.
Did you really grow up in Chicago, or did you grow up in like Deer Park or something?
Okay, first of all, I had this conversation the other day with someone who was from Aurora. I was born in the city.
Okay.
And when I was 7, my parents moved to the north suburbs. But it wasn't that far. And I did go to the city a lot all growing up. Are you from there? Do you know?
So I went to school not far from there. I have a huge number of friends who will all tell you they live in Chi, and they do not. They live in Deer fucking Park.
No, I was
or
closer.
Evanston, or you know what I mean? Like
Okay,
something
but
like that.
Evanston, though, there is an argument to be made that Evanston is
And
Chicago.
I
It's a
have heard all of these religious arguments, and I'm here to tell you that my friends that grew up and lived their whole lives on south side of Chicago are like, all you white people from the suburbs need to stop.
I'm not mad at that. I'm
I
not
feel
mad
like they
at
have
that.
a point.
But, I mean, we used to say it because people from Schaumburg would be like, I'm from Chicago. And we'd be like, no, you are not.
Yeah.
So this is a whole thing I'm
I
very
had
familiar
somebody
with.
from Rockford try
See,
to tell me. I was
no,
like, what? No, no. They're like, well, we're the second biggest city in the state. And
get
how
out.
does
No,
that make it Chicago? I don't understand.
Rockford, no, Rodford, no. I mean, like I've done comedy shows in Rockford. So
There you go. Anyway, sorry, back. So you grew up in Chicago, and then what
I grew
happened?
up there, always wanted to work in the film industry. Like it was like my dream, right? But like I didn't have like a specific dream of what job I would have. Like I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to be an actor. I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to be a writer. It was like I'm just going to work in this industry in some nebulous, unforeseen way that I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know. Because when I was 10, how could I know about script supervising? I couldn't. I didn't, shh, my phone is going crazy. So yeah, so I was doing the acting and writing and comedy thing. I still do that. I've been doing that for a very long time. But it got to a point where it's like, well, it's really hard to support yourself financially doing those things, right? Like I've always had in the past day jobs. I was a legal assistant and entertainment law. Like I've done like lots of like
Sure.
day jobs,
Yeah.
because
Waitressing is the classic, but there are other permeations,
I've
absolutely.
done that, but like I wasn't, I did that when I was younger, but like, I don't know, wasn't my jam for like career choice because I wasn't that serious about being an actor. As much as I love acting, but it took me until in my 30s before I could even say with a serious face and believe it, I'm an actor.
Mm.
That was a whole, who has time for that? That's therapy. We don't have time for that. But
I feel you though. I mean, I had a minute when I was a kid that I wanted to be an actress and like was serious enough about it that I like went to an equity school and like had
wow.
like, yeah, all of that kind of shit. And like at one point they just pulled my parents aside and me and they're like, all right, here's the deal. She has some talent. That is true. She is also fat. And this is a very hard industry for anybody who is not built like that. If that's the path she wants to walk, she is good enough that we'll represent her. What you need to know, because I was like 12, they're
Mm.
like, it's going to get real bad real fast. And they're not going to be gentle and they're not going to be subtle because she's a kid. And I was like, nope. I noped right out. And I like, it makes me sad that that's where the industry is. But like, I have always been so appreciative of that real conversation. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? That like somebody had the balls to sit down and say, here's what you would be signing up for. Is that a thing you want to do?
Wow. That's, first of all, kudos to you for making this decision and being okay with it. Like you're so okay. Like that was right. Like that's amazing. Rather than being like, oh, what was me and oh the world and all that stuff. Right. Cause like that's where I would think most people would go. Cause it's not fair and it's
No.
not right,
Nope.
and I'm sure probably you had your moments of feeling that.
Oh, I was
But
a 12-year-old kid. I was devastated, right? Like
yeah.
I was super sad, but my parents were like, well, they told you what it's going to be. And I was like, I don't want people to call me fat every time they see me. I'm good. And so like it was really easy from that perspective. But
Mhm.
at the same time, like, you know, it took a lot of it took many years for me to get this zen in talking about it, Caryn. Therapy is an amazing thing. So
Yeah, yeah, right. But congrats. I mean, that's some people they never get over it and then
Mm-mm.
they become stand-up comedians.
Or worse, they become community theater people and they're like
Oh,
40s and 50s convinced that they were like had their star stolen. God save me from community theater people who think they should have been on Broadway.
Yeah. But like, there are some that are just like, look, I love acting, so I'm going to do it wherever I can. And like for
And
them,
that is fine. That
yeah,
is fine.
we're not talking about those people.
No.
If you are of those people, we applaud you.
Right
We
on. Yeah.
appreciate you do you, have fun, enjoy it. But if you think no.
But like, when I retire in my dotage, I can totally see me like be like, sure, I'll do some community theater. Why not? I do not have that kind of time right now. But someday I will, and that might be fun. And then I'll be old and I'll get like Dame Judi Dench parts because I have a great English accent, having lived there for 10.5 years. So I can play all of like, the old white women roles. It'll be great. But
Sounds fun.
But so back to you.
Right.
You did not know that you wanted to be an actress. You just wanted to swim in those waters. It
Right.
took a long
Yeah.
time to own I am an actress.
Yeah.
Well done for owning it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I started taking when I moved out to LA when I was 28. And I started taking acting classes, and I found myself at Second City after a while, which I mean, I grew up watching Second City because I'm from Chicago. So I used to see those shows in high school because I lived there. Anyway, so, I'd sit in the audience and I'd be like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I wish I was that funny or that smart. They're so amazing. If only one day. And then, I was here in LA and I was in a play, and one of the other people in the play, he's like, you're funny. You should do Second City. And I was like, me? I can do it. And so I signed right up and I did the whole Second City program. It was amazing. And then from Second City, I did a lot of sketch, and I did a lot of improv, and then I started writing, and it was just like it kept escalating. And then back to where I was like, well, I was just doing all these things, and it just felt like a really expensive hobby at some point. I was like, this, like, I love it, but it's like I'm not the lead actor person. I'm just, that's not my I'm 4'11", I'm like the quirky best friend, whatever. And like, but like also was sort of aging out of quirky best friend because like ageism is something, and so I was like, how can I be on set? Set is my happy place. I love being on set. How can I contribute to this production? I mean, you watch a film, you watch a TV show, and there's like endless names. There's endless names of people that are working in the industry. And I was like, there's got to be something that I can do. And I went through every single one, researched it, Googled it, read stuff on it. And I was like, nope, 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 no, 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 don't want to do that. No, 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 no. Script supervisor. Huh. Oh, that looks interesting. That's literally the only other thing besides writing and acting that I had any interest in doing. Like, I don't want to be a director. Like, I don't want to be a camera person. That's too much technology. You have to learn cameras and all the stuff about how they work. No, I don't care about that. Like, lighting's cool, but like, I don't really want to take a deep dive on color temperatures. Like, I'm not interested. I wasn't interested in anything else.
Oh my God. I love this so much. So I have always thought the two jobs have always struck me, and I would love to hear your reasons for dismissal on these
Yeah.
two in this space have always been location scout.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, travel around, taking pictures of places,
Right.
get paid.
Mm-hmm.
I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Location scout and casting. I'm like,
Right.
okay,
Okay.
I'll take all the power.
Okay. So one at a time.
Yeah.
Location scout. I mean, that's a good job, but you're not on set.
Okay, very
You're
fair. Very fair.
running around. And it's like, I mean, I'm interested in buildings and locations, and I do like to look at apartments when I'm not looking to move. You know what I mean? But like, it just didn't feel like what I wanted to do all the time. And there's a lot of other like paperworky stuff that goes along with that I'm just like, thumbs down on that. So that's why Location Scout was out.
Okay, fair.
I like casting too. I've actually I've interned in casting I did help on casting several things and I love it. Casting's great. It's fun. You get to see behind the scenes and you get to watch all these actors make a fool of themselves or do really, really well and like advocate for them and get people jobs, which is awesome. But it's really, really competitive and hard to get into, you know, and it feels to me, even though it's a creative, it's also much more corporate,
Yep.
like because you're dealing with the studios and there's a lot of like you can say who you want, but you don't have the ultimate say. Like if the studio says we're not going to work with that person, you can't choose them. If the director says that person looks like my ex-wife and I don't want to hire her, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of things that go on. Like the idea of casting to a lot of people is really fun and interesting, and a lot of it really is. But like as a day to day, no, not for me.
I think it's a natural alliance for me because to me, casting is like recruiting, but in films, right? Like it's the same thing. And I think that never in my life have I been quite so humbled as I was director of talent acquisition for the YMCA, which
Mhm.
is a, la-di-da kind of title, right? I felt very powerful in my position.
Yeah.
My sister was applying for a job working at the daycare there. And she was like, right, so what's the deal? And I was like, well, you meet with this person. So she was like, you can't just hire me. And I was like, no, you wouldn't report to me. She's like, so you don't actually have any power. What is the point of you again? And I was like, all my ego just, and that way that like, only siblings can really achieve sometimes. But I feel like that is exactly what you just described with casting people, that you're like, yes, I am the casting director. And no, you will not get this role if you do not make it past me. But also, you will if the director's brother needs a role and he's decided to cast him. So,
Well, yeah, and like, being on the other end of the casting, it's like you have an audition in 3 hours, you have to drive across town. Or nowadays, it's like you have an audition, upload your tape within 2 hours. And, like, so it's like this super stressful situation, especially for like lower level, like,
yeah, yeah.
co-star roles, one-line roles. It's like all of a sudden they have to like cast all these people and they have to watch all these videos. And it's just, it, yeah, just doesn't feel like the fun idea you have in your head of what casting really is, where you get to like discover Brad Pitt. I'm just saying Brad Pitt because I just saw these videos of him on Instagram and like
That's
he's still
fine.
my favorite. I
Discovering
don't know.
Brad Pitt, I mean, I
I
think
mean,
that
can you imagine? Like,
somebody did, right?
yeah.
But I think like recruiting is the same. I think that we get such a reputation for being like these, evil masterminds. It's like you are way, way giving us way too much credit and power. Like what we really are is somebody with a mountain of resumes to get through in like an hour.
Mm,
It's not malice. It's not like evil genius. It's just general laziness and also a lot of work in a short amount of time. That's the whole list for most of it. And I have other things I think about recruiters. But anyway, back to you. So you went through all of these millions of things and you thought, gosh, what is the thing that would really make sure that my blood pressure is always the highest
mm,
and that I definitely never get 8 hours of sleep at night uh,
mm,
during filming? And you're
mm,
like,
that.
script supervisor.
But
Go
we
to
get to
bed.
sit next to the director all day. We're included in all the cool conversations, with the DP and with
Huh?
like,
Huh?
you're looped in on everything. It's cool. When it's a good
Well,
gig, it's a really good gig.
so
It
I
doesn't
have
feel like work. If being on set doesn't feel like work, to you. Like it doesn't for
there.
me. It feels like fun. I'm in fun times with the time doesn't matter, day, the politics, nothing matters. We're on set. Nothing on the outside world exists except this environment that we've created where we control the light and we control the sound and we control this and that, except for when the airplane flies over and we hold for airplane, but you know what I mean.
So being in there for all that minutia,
Mm.
When it comes time to watch it after it's done,
Mhm.
does that make it hard for you to
No.
watch? Or do you like watch it and be like, that's that fucking moment where that plane flew over? And like, does it make it hard? Because I think the best part about film and great storytelling, right, in that way, is being able to be immersed and like just captivated and taken away by the story. I would think that like if you had had that level of engagement, it would make it a lot harder because you'd be like, mm-mm, that was the day that I thought I was going to stab me, a makeup artist, because she did not read any of my notes, right? Like, I would just think that all of that would come back. Do you still get to enjoy them?
I do. I do still enjoy them.
Okay.
But it is a different level of enjoying. And there is always that stuff in the back of the mind, like that was when we were fighting the sun, because this really should have been a scene that took place during the day. And look, it's dusk and it does not match. And that's what happened that day, you know? Or, oh my God, we didn't have that actor and we had a stand in, and it's they're back to the camera, but I can tell and I know it's the wrong person, or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
those things do come up while I'm watching it, but also it's like this true joy and appreciation, because knowing how much work was put into it, how many long days, sometimes overnights, you know, when you shoot it, when you're watching something that takes place at night, outside at night, we were working from like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. that day. You know, we're working all night, you know, so you get to like go, oh, we did it. Look at what we made. It turned out. Oh my God, it turned out so good. Congratulations. We did it. Yay, go team, you know?
That makes total sense. So, is Script Supervisor like, are you now like, this is now your happy place and like, this is where you're going to go? Or if I gave you a magic crayon
Yeah.
and let you write your own job description,
Yeah.
would you write something different? Would you be the leading woman? Would you be
No.
the
No,
director?
see, the thing is, like, I realized recently I am living my dream life right now, because I'm doing all of the things. Like, I have a pilot that's winning awards. I have a short film that I co-wrote and starred in as a man, and it's
Oh.
making festival rounds and winning awards in festivals. So like all of my interests are all happening right now. So I get to script supervise a film, you know, for a friend or for somebody, you know, for work or whatever. Like I get to go do that. And then I also get to do my other thing. Like I get to do everything that I'm just so lucky right now. I wouldn't change it.
I love that. Like that makes me so completely, I can't even tell you how wonderful it is to hear when I spend all day with people like, yeah, I'm looking for a new job because, and you can tell that the answer is because your current job are like nothing but assholes, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd love to hear somebody saying, like everything's coming up, Karen, and I'm excited. That's
I mean, look,
amazing.
sometimes being on set is terrible. You know, sometimes there's a director who's an asshole and who yells, or a DP who like refuses to acknowledge me, like won't even talk to me, you know. And I don't love doing night after night of overnights. It fucks up your sleep, it fucks up your life, it's not comfortable, but still, but
But you still wouldn't
still.
change it. You sound like a parent. You know that, right? Like this is the kind of thing we tell ourselves to get through the PTSD of small humans. Is it's like, I know I haven't slept in a week, and I know I live in constant abject terror that they're somehow going to kill themselves or somebody else. But also, I would never change it because look how peaceful they are when they're asleep. And I think I made that with my own body.
Right, that's
I'm just saying.
exactly.
It's not healthy when we say it either, Karen.
I know.
Um, but that is amazing, and I am super happy. So I have a brass tacks kind of question. As a script supervisor, is
Yes.
that something that gets hired on an individual basis? Like the director's like, I need Caryn Ruby because she's the bomb dot diggity com. Or is that something that like goes through an agency? Because I know a lot of the set work, a lot of lighting, most of those have different companies that they hire, and they may have personal, like may have specific people that they prefer, but in general, the contract goes to XYZ Corp. Is it the same with script supervision, or is that just like straight up on an individual basis?
It really depends on where you are living and whether you're in the union or not.
Okay.
So certain places there are agents. I know there's agents in Europe, in England, they have agents that manage and represent script supervisors. Here in LA, no, no agents. Um, and then a lot of the work really is referrals too. Once you get in the union, which knocking on wood, I will be very soon. Once you get in the union, then you're on the roster. And so productions, say we need a script supervisor, and either they go to their friends or they have somebody, that hires the script supervisor and they go to their friends, or they go to the roster and say, give me the list of script supervisors. And they just go bump, 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 bump.
So if somebody is watching this and goes, wow, that's amazing. I want to be like Caryn when I grow up. And they want to go be a script supervisor too. What does that look like? Like, how do you make that?
Oh,
Does it step one, move to LA?
I
Or
thought you were going to tell them what should they do? I would say they should listen to a new podcast.
they should.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were going to give them like the short answer for that, because that podcast is going to tell them a whole bunch of other things about
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they actually want to do that job.
That's fair. Yeah, the best way is to read some books and go to class.
Okay.
So I studied with Randy Feldman, who I cannot recommend highly enough. She now, and since we're in COVID times, and who knows if we'll ever get out of it, she teaches online. So you don't have to fly into LA and be here for 6 weeks, or 3 months or whatever the program was. So once you take a class, then you start making connections. And that's really the key. The key is connecting with people. So you could also do that on Facebook. There's a Facebook group called Script Supervisors and non-union script supervisors. So you really want to be a script supervisor, look it up, and you can connect with other people. And then what starts to happen is, you start getting people's refuse, right? People ahead of you start flowing back, right? So when you're first starting out, you'll do work for free. You have to, or really low pay, because that's how you get your experience, and the people with experience will not work for free. And yet, because they've been in it so long, people are going, hey, can you do this job for me? And they're like, no, use Caryn. And now it's the point where they're like, hey, Caryn. And I'm like, no, use this person because I don't do that anymore. Right. So that's sort of how it works. And through that, you start meeting people and you get referrals. And, if you do a good job and you're good on set and people like you, then you could get a job from a makeup artist. You could get a job from a prop person. The director likes you and wants to hire you again, or that's how it works. It's all who you know. And you don't have to live in LA. They make films everywhere.
You make a lot of them.
There's most work here. There's a lot more work here, but there's a lot of work in Atlanta. There's a lot of work. There's work in New Mexico. There's work. There's work where people are making movies, and you just have to hook up with the community. When you're first starting out, hook up with the film school, start working on the film school projects, volunteer your time. That's the best way to get started. And then you come up with this group of people,
So basically, go find the Kevin Smith at your film school, be the script supervisor on Clerks, and then hope for the best. Going for that.
I mean, yeah. And
Sage,
then you're done.
Sage advice, and then you're set for life.
You're set for life. It's easy. Yeah.
So, what does a script supervisor make? Doesn't have to be you personally, but in general. And how do they make it? I assume it's not hourly. I assume it's for the project, but I may be wrong in that.
You might be wrong.
Okay.
You are.
How does it work then? Educate me.
Usually you get paid by the hour or for a 12-hour day.
Okay.
And so the only rules about what you can get paid live in the world of the union projects. And that's
Okay.
any movie you're going to go see in the movie theater, the TV shows on TV, some commercials, some, you know, some independent films are union and some aren't, and some TV shows aren't. Anyway, so the union have strict rules about what script supervisors get to be paid. And there's a whole lot that we have to do before we step on set, because we don't just take notes. We have to understand the story. We have to do a lot of preparation. We have to do our pre-production breakdown. We have to decide, you know, how many days in the story, where does the days, and you know, like all these things we have to do for pre-production. And there's a certain number of days that you're supposed to get paid for in pre-production. And then at the end, we put together our book. You know, you were talking about at the end, all the notes we collab, you know, do all that. And so there's mandated amounts of prep and wrap in the union, and in the non-union world, you're on your own. Everything's on your own. So you negotiate for the best rate you can get and for as many prep and wrap days that you can get, depending on the project, depending on their budget. You know, you also want to try and get extra money for a kit fee, which is, well, if I'm bringing my personal computer, and on it I have my personal software that I had to pay for, and it's sitting on a table that I had to buy, and I use my Blackmagic mini recorder that I bought that plugs into the monitor so that I can take screen grabs. You know, I had to pay for all that. And so if you want me to use that on your set, which helps me to do the best job that I can do, so you should want me to use that, you should pay for the use of that stuff. So all these things are negotiations, and all these things are things that you learn. Like when I first started out, I didn't have a kit. I had a 3-ring binder and paper. That's how you should start. You know, you got to learn the job, because the job is not a software. Now I'm lecturing. But anyways, so, you know, you build up your kit as time goes on, and then you just get better at negotiating. You have more of an understanding of how long it's going to take you in prep and what really has to be done. And then you negotiate. So that was a long answer of no answer. Look at
That
that.
was a huge answer, and I really appreciate it. Like, that was so interesting because I assumed that it was like I would be terrible in script saver and be totally taken advantage of. Like, absolutely, this is by the set. That's totally how we do this here. Here is a check for an amount of money that you thought was a lot, and now we're going to kill you with all of the hours. So, no, that was fascinating. And I just think that so many people, like, it must be so frustrating at the beginning because I can hear how steep that learning curve has to be between the lingo, between the expectation, right? That like okay, great. Even if so you've explained pretty clearly, right, what the job is. I can imagine somebody be like, I could do that, except I know me. And I have the equivalent of that in my world is my coordinator, and God bless her. Robin may be a saint because I'm like, yeah, I know that those were the words that I used. However, that was nothing to do with what I intended. And so, like the other day, she asked me some question, and I said pause, and she thought that meant like that the person was green lighted to go to the next step, and so she's like starting to send emails to be like,
Pass.
oh
That means possibly, right?
no, pass, PASS, pass.
Oh, pass.
Sorry, my
What
sometimes
is
English accent
this?
killed
Where
that.
are
So sorry.
accent?
10.5 years, 10.5 years. So
I won't even try. I'm not good. I can't. I can do other accents. I cannot do the English one. I just cannot. It's just I can't.
it was hilarious when I first came home and people were like, where are you from? I was like, Texas. And they're like, no, really, where are you from, darling? And I'm like, you hear England because I have lived there for 10.5 years. Oh my God, I just love England. Oh, God, can't. I can't. People literally in grocery stores would hear my husband and I talking
Uh-huh.
and would like run up to my husband, like, "Oh, I love you." I'm like, awkward panda.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but yes. So anyway, I said toss about something, and she thought that meant that I was greenlighting the candidate to go through. And what I meant by
Oh,
that was pass, like I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
yes.
Communication. Ooh.
And I would imagine it's about 9 billion times more complicated than that in your world. That they'll be like, Karen, I want the blah, blah, blah. And you're like, sure, sure. But their version of the blah, 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 and the previous 4 directors you've worked with, versions of the blah, 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 probably bear very little resemblance to one another.
I don't know what you mean by blah, blah, blah in this instance, so I can't really say.
So if it like any particular component of your job, so if they're like, hey, I need the notes from today's shoot.
Mhm.
Cool, cool. There's probably
No. Well, no, first of all, nobody's going to ask me for the notes except the editor.
okay.
So I've already given it to him. I've already given it to him.
Okay.
You know,
But
well, maybe production. Production might want to know the notes, but I know that if they're asking for the notes, what production is asking is what have we shot and what do we have left? Are we on schedule or are we behind? That's what production wants to know. They don't care if we did a wide angle lens or a low angle shot or a jib or what. They don't care. They want to know, are we on budget? Are we on time?
But the editors must all have like special, like everybody must have individual foibles about how they want those things presented and what fine level of detail that they want and don't want. Do you like, is it a pretty standard level of deviation on those points so that when you come in to a project at the outset, you're like, cool, how do you want this to look? Do you want this or that? Or is it like you figure it out on the fly because you get it wrong the first 3 times? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's really interesting because it takes a while to understand how to communicate with all the different department heads because we have to communicate with all the different department heads, and a lot of times I'll reach out to the editor before we shoot and say, hey, do you have a particular thing that you're looking for in my notes? Is there a certain, I use Scarrett software. Are you familiar with Scarrett? Does that mean anything to you? Most people know the software Scripty, and Scripty is a different PDF style, and so like we're doing VFX stuff. Do you care how I slate it? Slate is the, when they say take 4 apple, 4 apple, take 1, beep. That's us. We go 4 apple. That's what we're no 4 baker. That's us, But like there's an art to deciding what goes on the slate, and that's how the editor knows what's everywhere. So it's really important that if they want us to have the slate say a certain thing for the VFX shot, if they want us to put the V in front of it, or if they don't, that could be a thing because they're scanning through, scrubbing through all this stuff. And if they see the V, then they know that's the VFX. Or maybe they don't do it that way at all. Maybe they don't care. Some editors go, I don't care about your notes. I don't look at your notes. It's like,
then why am I writing them?
well, because I have to do it for myself. Because if I don't take the notes and somebody comes up to me and said, what did it, was this on the table before? And I have to, or what, did we shoot this already? Or what do we have anything left in this scene? Or I need those notes for me, for my job during the day.
That makes perfect sense. And that sounds exhausting. I'm not going to lie.
It is exhausting to make movies.
But also kind of fun. Like
Super
I can see
fun.
where the fun part comes in. So
you're surrounded by creatives. You're in a sea of artists. Everybody's an artist.
You're not selling it.
What? No, what? I love artists. Are you kidding?
I love
artists. The actors, they're creatives, and the director's creative, and the DP's creative, and the props are creative, and the costumes creative, and the makeup's creative. Everybody's a creative. Even the lights there's an art to everything.
So my business partner is an artist. She's a ceramicist. And I do a lot of work in the gaming industry, and they are all creatives. And I am not a creative.
Well, then
I am a business person. And so I'm like, I love what you can do with that energy, but also let's pay some bills, bitches. Like, I am that person. I am always the bad news fairy at the table in the room full of creatives who has to be like, yes, your vision is glorious. However, we do not have $8 billion to do that.
Yeah,
we have $5.
Yeah, you'd be a great producer.
Eh,
Well, that's the job of the producer. One of the many hats of jobs of producers. Producers do a million things too, which is
it
another
seems
thing I can do. I've produced a lot of things and I do not want to be a producer. No.
I am starting to think, Karen, that the list of things you cannot do is very short, and that it is only a matter of what things you do not want to do.
I mean, I yeah, I
Where could I
yeah.
have possibly gotten that impression? And well, believe it or not, we are almost out of time. So what have I not asked you that I should? Obviously, we have your fabulous podcast, and we're
Yeah, we
going to
didn't
have
really
all the
talk
links.
much about it.
Tell me more about the podcast.
It's a 10 episode limited series that just launched everywhere you get your podcasts. One episode a week for 10 weeks. It launched today, August 3rd. That's when we're taping it. I don't know when you'll watch it. So check it out wherever you find their podcasts. I interviewed 13 amazing script supervisors from across the US that worked on everything from Oscar and Emmy award winning and all just like amazing, amazing projects. And the really cool thing that I did with this podcast is it's not just a straight interview podcast. Not that there's anything wrong with straight interview podcasts.
Thank you.
But what I decided was, I need these script supervisors to get visibility. I need people to hear what we have to say. And if I just say, this is the podcast with Randy Feldman, well, all the script supervisors are going to go, oh my God, it's Randy Feldman. But you don't know who Randy is. And I need the world to know who Randy is, right?
Fair.
And Don Gilliam and Mary Cebulski and, Marjorie Kimbrough and all the amazing talent that I have. And I thought, well, what is going to draw people in? Topics, interesting topics. So each episode has a short interview of 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, and then a topic of about the same length, right? And the topic is curated from all the interviews. So I have one topic is negotiating and how to get the job, which sure, we talk about it from the script supervisor's point of view, but I think your audience would be very interested in that episode because it can be related to any job where you have to negotiate and know your worth. That's the
I'm excited for that myself. I'm like, ooh,
yeah. So that one, and then I have one on continuity, which the people we were talking about earlier, the armchair continuity police will love. I have a podcast topic on what the heck happened with that Game of Thrones coffee cup. Really, what happened with that? And we talk, everyone's got a theory. And then I actually, by the end, tell you, we know exactly what happened because we know somebody who knows exactly how that happened. So that's the really cool thing to me about the podcast is these topics that are really interesting. And they're just sound bites curated from all of the interviews. So you don't have to listen to an hour of people babbling about things that you're not interested in. Not like this podcast where you're interested in every minute, but other podcasts where people talk and you're like, go forward. It's just short, it's sweet, it's the point. Every episode is under 30 minutes, including a 2 minute and 11-second bio song in the middle, which is a song that, I had people like, who are these people on your podcast? I need to know. And so I wrote this, the amazing script supervisors on this podcast include, and then I list their names and I list some of their credits, and it's really cool. But it went on, and I was like, nobody's gonna sit and listen to this. It needs to have its own theme song. So I had my composer make a theme song to go under that, and it's really cool pulsing beat, and every name it changes, and it's and then Don Gilliam and Marjorie Kimbrough and Sharon Watt, and it's just awesome. And so so that lives in the center of every episode, which is super fun break. And so it's just, I'm really proud of it. I've worked really hard on it. I've been working on this since before the pandemic. I did 4 interviews in person before the pandemic, and we just launched today, August 3, 2022. Cheers to that.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. You've got a listener from me for sure. I think it sounds amazing. I'm particularly excited about the Game of Thrones coffee cup.
That's episode 10.
Okay, noted. And the negotiation one, obviously. But that's low-hanging fruit for me, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when it comes out, let me know what you think.
I will do. And we'll have links to all of that so that everybody else can go and check it out as well. And you have been such a delight. Thank you so much for joining me and educating me. I learned so much. Oh my God, this is amazing.
This is great. Thank you. And your listeners can reach out to me directly.
Awesome.
With questions.
That is a big offer. So thank you.
Yeah.
Careful what you say.
I know. I didn't mean to do that.
You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.